had Chicago-style deep dish pizza, which I occasionally sell out of my apartment. Spinach, mushrooms, ricotta, lemon zest, mozzarella base, tomato sauce, a little basil shift nut on top, and Romano. Yeah, I was still on Birdhouse, and I had like a couple other offers. I used to get boards from Jamie when I was younger. I forget how young, like maybe 11 or so. So I would be hanging around Black Box because I had a lot of friends. I'd work there, skate there. My friend Winterberg was always filming there, and I grew up with him. He filmed a lot of like my younger sponsor me tapes, I guess. And yeah, so then Jamie kind of like wanted me to skate for zero, but I didn't really want to, and that's sort of how Slave started. And I don't think Ben wanted to really stay the art director, and so I think that was a lure for Ben. I think Ali was over it. Yeah, so Jordan Taylor is super talented, and I suppose he's gonna be on there soon. He's a friend that I didn't grow up with him because he was an Encinitas kid, but yeah, I had tried to get him on the company, but he kind of got devoted by a vote, and so we weren't able to get him boards, but I think it worked out fine for him. I think a little bit before he found Jesus, I think it was, yeah, we were trying to skate a double set out in like, I forget if it's like, I think it was in Pasadena where Brian did like a half cab heel flip down. And then, yeah, I believe Donnie did a front three that night. But essentially there was like an aggressive homeless person fucking with us. And I watched Sumner because he had like chips and soda in hand. And he was like, tell him like, hey, fuck off, man. Just like leave us alone. And I watched him just like kick the guy up to like get him out, and then he's like, all right, fuck, he's out. Because he was like kind of in the heat of the moment, he was like trying a trick, you know, like, etc. But yeah, I definitely, oh, Brian's gonna be pissed at me, I think. Where do you want to start with? So Fred and I weirdly have the same birthday. Obviously he's older, we're both born on November 5th. But yeah, Fred and I would bunk rooms quite often. One time in Portland, we both were drinking way too much, you know, Fred does some other things. And I was passed out on the thing, and he had a supplier come in with some product. And so like, he's like, yo, let's wake him up. And I just remember like just barely waking up like this, and there's this bald-headed person right in my face with like full face tats, and I was like, what in the fuck? And I just hear his laugh, he's like, ah, and then I'm like, you motherfucker, man, like, these are what nightmares are made of. And so then that night, I helped him light a crack pipe, because he couldn't figure out, and I used to have like tools, I'm like, oh yeah, I can light this shit, like, what is it? But so then that happened. But I've gotten to a lot of good times with Fred, and he's awesome, and I hear he's doing a lot better. He's an epic person, he would do whatever for any of his friends, like, super amazing person. So I had like a rough foundation of a part. And then, you know, we were all just getting together and no one really knew how it was gonna go. So it's like, you know, kind of unleash a crew like that. And it was really fun and it was awesome. And then even at that time too, I was filming for what was supposed to be an analog video where Dylan had that part that everyone knows. So like I was filming two things at once, but yeah, it was really fun. They were like, you know, trying to build the brand and, you know, dealing with like, not dealing with Ben because it's not like that, but it's like figuring out, it's like, oh, like he wants it like this. So it's like, because whatever, I feel like this sounds cocky, but like at the time, he was like, I don't want any names, I don't want any of this. Like it just, I want it to be raw, but like, you know, whoever's on Slave, they're on Slave because they skate a unique way or whatever. Like, you know, like there's no like kind of big bosses on Slave, maybe like Ali or Mumford at the time, but like, and like even like Schultz is up there too. Yeah, I did. I used to warm up like that. So yeah, you just like kind of like fidget your board around and like go like that and you just go and then, so it wasn't like a dropping right, it wasn't like tail stalling, but like you would like hold the rail and like get locked in. Yes, and I think I know your follow-up question to that. So that night, I believe, was the night that we cut out half of it with Brian. And we all did it together. But then he like went on a hissy fit because he thought Ali cut out his rail. And Ali didn't, I'm dead positive he didn't. Like Ali doesn't have that much fucking time, and like obviously those two clashed. Obviously Brian and I clashed.
Yeah.
Not throw him under the bus, but just be honest about life. He was there with us. He used to have like the cutout rail in his mom's room. And then we did like one of the interviews I forget with. He was like, I don't know who the fuck we do this. I'm like, dude, we did that shit together. And we did that because we were just bored of seeing El Toro shit. Like I think we went there on a rainy night to skate like the 2 stairs. You know, it's like, dude, I'm so fucking sick of seeing El Toro. It's like, you know, it's like, let's just cut out half of it, see what happens. And so we did. And he had the rail. He was a part of it. We were all doing it together. Yeah, and then he's like, I don't know, whatever, I'm trying my heart out. And it's like, dude, you did that. I did it, like, but I did it out of boredom. It wasn't out of spite. Like, we were just like fucking there and I'm tired of this shit. Like, but yeah, so he's like one of those people where it's like, yeah, he pretends like he wouldn't do that, yet he's done stuff like that. So I guess hypocrite is the term, but, and then we went back there, I think like a week later, completely like fixed. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, how'd they do that quickly? That's when I realized that skating Roadhouse was what it was. I was already on, and I already had like an ad in a magazine and everything else, like getting paychecks. But I was with Winterberg and myself, and I forget who else in Ozone, like switching a board. And Tony comes in and has no idea who I am, but I skate for his company. And like him being Tony, he was like being cool. He's like, hey, can I buy a board? And I was like, yeah, of course you can buy a board, man. And I'm over there switching a board, and it's a birdhouse board. And then Matt's like, don't you skate for him? I'm like, yeah, I do. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, they pay me and I'm in the magazine. Like, and so Winterberg's like, all right, I'm gonna fuck with him. And so he goes up and he's like, hey man, I love your video games. Like, they're the best I've ever seen. And I'm just like, fucking Matt, like, why are you gonna do this right now? And of course, Tony's like, oh, thank you, man. Like, I appreciate that. And Matt's just like talking to him, just like, oh God, like I might get fired pretty soon. I had done a slap interview with Joe Brook that was supposed to be in the magazine, but it got cut to the internet, which is fine, but I was trying to get out of doing the interview because clearly I'm not very great at them. So I think Dylan was one of them, I think Art was one of them, I think Mumford was one of them. I can't remember all the people that like, but they basically just answered questions about me or said something about me. I was going through a weird thing and we're hanging out. A lot of beverages were consumed. And he had just gotten done doing it, and I forget he was fucking with me. So like, I remember leaving and just like, you know, a little glass table, and just like I knocked out all of his like drinks and everything on the floor, and broke a bunch of shit and made a mess. We would always clearly mess with each other with other things. And he was doing that, and he was talking to me. I was like, fuck you. And so I just did that and left. And so I broke all that shit, and I went to my room and I just like went there, and then he came in and he like lit a lighter to where it got like ripping hot to get me back, which again makes sense. So he tried to like do that, so that's from him, apparently. So kind of there, but it's like he singed it in, and I think he thought I was gonna budge, but I was drunk enough to where I couldn't really feel it, and so it just went fully through and took it out, and then later on, like the next day, like it started developing an infection, and it like just got worse and worse and worse. But what I did was I just kept pouring alcohol on it and like, you know, scrubbing it out and doing that. Well, I live in Carlsbad now, but I grew up in Vista, so I'm gonna say it's the house of Vista. I like to go there. I don't make it out there too much these days because I'm rusty and old and don't skate that much. Cheers, Mike Brick. So for now, I'm in between restaurant jobs, which I still work at, but I've just been selling pizzas out of my house because it's fun and it seems to be decent enough. I hope it's passable. Don't fully have a name for it, but if you want to follow my Instagram or DM me or anything like that, I try and sell weekly. And, you know, at times I get too busy and can't always get around to it, but the end goal, I think, is to start a pizza shop at the moment, but I am still trying to figure out my life at the tender age of 35.